Welcome to the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History for Monday, the 11th of January, 2021. You should have by now taken the Chapter Survey 5 quiz, and you should also have turned in the Chapter Survey 5. Chapter Survey 5. Chapter Survey 5. You get the idea. So, where we are and where we've been is the Roman Republic. And one of the basic truths in life is that people are not equal. We're not. Some of us are beautiful. We're handsome. Others of us are ugly. Some of us are graceful. Others of us are clumsy. Some of us are smart. Others are as numb as a hake. Some of us are talented. Others plod along. We are not all equal in our capacity to love, to trust, to be faithful, to be honest. We are not all equally endowed with a desire to do good or to be good or to believe. We are inherently unequal beings. Now, politically, some utopian idealists have gotten it into their heads that political equality in some respects would be a desirable thing. To a very limited degree, I agree. For example, I am absolutely whole hog happy about the American idea, which comes from the Enlightenment, the 1700s, a philosophical movement about liberty that says that everyone should be equal under the law. What that means is that you are judged on the basis of what you do, not who your father was or who you are. At no point during the judicial process should somebody be able to ask, "Don't you know who I am?" That's obnoxious. It shouldn't matter who you are. We should all be judged fairly by the same standards. Also, we shouldn't have radically different opportunities based on how we're born. So, a year before I was born, back in the Stone Age when dinosaurs ruled the world, we made racial discrimination against federal law. And that ended a lot of racial discrimination. Are some people still in the fastness of their mind racists? Hell yeah. And they will be until the end of time. Because the only way to get rid of that form of racism is to reach into other people's heads and reprogram them. And if you think that one through, you're not going to want to live in a world like that, where somebody who wants you to think a certain way can literally reach into your head and go beep, boop, bop, and suddenly you're a different person. We are not equal. But should everyone have an opportunity to get an education? Yeah. Should everyone get the same result? Absolutely not. A person who works hard deserves an excellent grade. A person who doesn't deserves to fail. A person who is talented in a particular area, like some people like me are very good in history, will do well in history. But people like me are very bad in theoretical math. We're going to do very bad in theoretical math. That's natural. Equality of opportunity does not mean equality of outcome. If you're a socialist or a communist or some other kind of utopian, you believe, well, maybe we should have a universal basic grade where everyone gets the same basic passing grade. Oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah, let's try grade socialism here at the Charter Academy. We'll see how you like it. Everyone ends up getting a C. A students have their grades downgraded because they don't really deserve that. They're privileged in some way by having the ability to work hard and having a quiet place at home and yada, yada, yada. And those poor people who normally would fail, oh, we've got to take care of them because caring is sharing. I don't know how many of you would be up for grade socialism, but I imagine that most of you who earn good grades on your own wouldn't be so thrilled about it. Society is unequal. We are not equal. Should we be equal under the law? Yes. Should we have a roughly equivalent opportunity in life? Not have things barred to us because women don't do that job, or men don't do that job, or white people don't do that job, or black people don't do that job? No. People should not be barred on the basis of birth characteristics from applying to a job. But just because you apply for a job doesn't mean you get one. Just because you get accepted to a school doesn't mean you're going to pass. We are not equal. And to force us into some kind of equality is tyrannical and ultimately is about harm. Or am I wrong? My religion tells me that we're all valuable in God's eyes, that human life is equally valuable, no matter who lives it, that God loves us each, whether we are saints or sinners, because he hopes that we will choose him. And that hope is born of love. So my faith tells me that we are all equal in the eyes of the Lord. And yet there's judgment. There's judgment day. There are people who live in harmony, and there are people who live in discord with the faith and what it says. So is everyone valuable? Yes. Is everyone equally valuable? Yes. Is everyone going to have the same outcome? No. That's what my faith teaches me. Did you have your hand up to talk about this? Do you want to talk about this? Oh, God, no. Please, no. Fair enough. Does anyone wish to offer thoughts on the essential inequality or equality of human life?
Often there are several differences that really can change how people react, without, be it the color of your skin, your gender, whether you're gay or not. Like, those little differences that really shouldn't make such a large impact on people are some of the things that will make people freak out the most. Like, I know that not all Christians would say, from personal experiences, how I've experienced it being a pansexual person. When people find out that I'm not straight, they will oftentimes tell me that I need to repent, that I need to turn to God. And from personal experience, that's not exactly a good thing. And there are good Christians out there that are completely fine with people being gay. Like, there's no problem with it. God loves all, in all eyes, in his eyes, everyone is equal. But that does not change that people will choose subtle differences or things that really shouldn't matter to cause more stress and upset towards everyone, simply because they feel like they have a right to that.
Okay.
Simple, like.
That's an interesting intersection, because what you're talking about is the accepting side. I assume you're talking about Christians.
I'm talking about Christians specifically. Yes, they're
in an Islamic country, you would not come out, not unless you wanted to die.
I would at this point.
Yeah. So, for what it's worth, for better or worse, Western Christian civilization has produced enough tolerance.
It's much kinder. It's much kinder to you.
Okay. Having said that, yes. I think it is reasonable in the United States to expect that you are going to be treated fairly as an individual on the basis of what you do, not the various aspects or choices that you make in life that have nothing to do with your job. Okay? Should a Christian who is not comfortable with homosexuality or pansexuality or anything be allowed to express their point of view? I think so. Should they be allowed to hire on fire on the basis of that? Most of the time, I would say probably not. There are some exceptions. If you're applying for a job in a youth ministry in their church, and you don't have a conforming idea with their church, you shouldn't get that job. If your job is being a nurse in a hospital, and that happens to be a Catholic hospital, I don't think that there'll be any problem at all. There would be any problem at all with you getting a job. So should they have a right to express their point of view, even if it's not friendly to yours? Yes. Should you have a right to express your point of view about it? Hell yes. But the question is, should it be allowed to lead to discrimination? And I would say in most cases, no. In some cases, yes. It's like combat infantry. In the military, especially something like the Marine Corps, which is hardcore combat infantry, do you want to have equality where you have just as many female as male Marines? And there are plenty of female Marines, and they are tough, tough women. Kick my butt up one side of this classroom and down the other, many of them. But do you want them as your frontline shock troops? And the answer is, well, if they're able to do the same damage a man can, yes. If they're not, put them in other roles. It depends on the work. You don't want equality of opportunity among surgeons. You don't want somebody who's clumsy or stupid being your surgeon. Where's the appendix? How is it different from the lungs? I know I was supposed to remove something. I hope it's the right organ. And I slipped a little bit. There's some bleeding going on in there. You may want to fix that. You don't want equality of opportunity in your surgeon. But yeah, in general terms, I agree with your point. Thank you for making it. Any other thoughts, Zoe?
As a Christian, I don't personally, as my beliefs, I don't. I need to find words. I don't personally agree with the whole LGBTQ thing. Like that's just not what I've been led to believe. But that doesn't mean I hate anyone who is that. That doesn't mean I don't respect them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that we just have different things and we just view it a bit differently. And I don't think that needs to really affect how we can be friends or.
Toleration
whatever.
means putting up with things that you don't agree with. Now, there are certain things I'm not going to be tolerant of. If you sacrifice babies to your pagan god, I'm not going to be up for that. If you harm animals in service to your pleasure, I'm not going to be up. I'm not going to be favorable. No, I'm not going to be tolerant of that. If you enslave people, I'm not going to be tolerant of that. But in general terms, to the greatest degree we can, America works and modern societies work when you have people who have different values coming together and functioning. You don't have to agree, you just have to work together. You just have to function. Even if you don't agree, you don't like, even it doesn't matter. Can you work together? And if the answer is yes, can you respect somebody having a different point of view without them being stupid or evil? Hopefully, yes. That's toleration. And for us tribal apes, that's a difficult thing. But we work at it. At least we, as a society, work at it. Anything else?
Well, I'm gonna just say I don't care if it's common or not. It's Democrats and Republicans that can actually be friends with different views is amazing.
It is, and that should be the norm. It should be the norm. And I'll tell you, it used to be more common than it is now. And it's because things have gotten much more intense. Yes?
Each of us has our own opinion on certain matters, where it's something as big as politics or something like that. But you gotta be able to respect them as a person, as their beliefs and what they want, and not just judge them straight off the bat without even thinking.
Amen. Absolutely. I've said this before, and this is how I'll conclude this unless anyone has anything else to say. If you honestly believe in your heart of hearts that nobody who's smart or good could disagree with you, you have already taken a dangerous step towards becoming a fanatic. There are smart people in this world who disagree with you about almost everything. And there are good people in this world who disagree with you about almost everything. Same is true for me. People, because of culture, because of life experience, because just that's the way their mind works, can come to very different conclusions out of good intentions. I don't doubt that there are good communists. I don't doubt that there are, and I hate communism, but I try not to hate communists. There's an old saying, hate the sin, love the sinner. And if you believe someone is a sinner, understand you're not God. And having some degree of sympathy for everyone is a useful way to live. Judge not lest you be judged is another way of going at it. In other words, it's good that you have beliefs. It's not good that you use them as a weapon. So I do agree with I agree with what you said. Okay, I gotta be quick. 5 seconds. So.
Okay, this is one thing I find ridiculous, and I'm still gonna use the example because it's probably sadly common. So the LGBTQ thing, I don't understand why there's all these people who, when someone comes out and says they're gay or lesbian or trans or anything else like that, they have to suddenly someone will just turn on them for that when even if they've known them as a person for a long time in their life.
Oh, that says more about the person who turns than the person who's just come out. By the way, it happens.
I'm meaning about the person who turns.
Yeah, it happens on campuses if you come out as a conservative too. Yeah. It does. But yeah, no. Well, you also find out who's really your friend and who isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. The reason I started with this is because we're dealing with social classes in Republican Rome. The wealthy and powerful are the patricians. So if you know anyone who's named Patrick or Patricia, their name means aristocrat or noble person. upper class, classy. My mom was named Patricia, is named Patricia. So Patrick or Patricia is for patrician. Patrician are the aristocracy of Rome, the nobility, the upper class. They are the big landowners, they are the senators, they are the generals and the high priests. Now below them, and the only other class in Rome, early Rome besides slaves in those days, were called plebeians. And the plebeians are your working class people, family farmers, craftsmen like blacksmiths or carpenters, winemakers, tanners who make leather, that sort of thing, dyers, woolers, gluers, people who work in the streets. Patricians tend to be the officers in the military. Plebeians tend to be the centurions and the common soldiers. So there's your class divide in early Rome. Social stratification is a fancy word for having an upper class and having a middle and a lower class. One of the interesting things to me that proves my we are not all equal thing is that under communism, whose biggest claim to any kind of legitimacy is we want to get rid of inequality, always sets up an aristocracy. The Communist Party and its members get to do and live in much more comfortable ways than everyone else in the society. So if in communism you still have vast inequality between people, you're going to have inequality in a free society too. So the patricians are rich, the plebeians work with their hands for a living, and there are a few slaves, but early Rome isn't that wealthy, so there aren't that many. There's going to come a point, though. The patricians and the plebeians are all Romans. They're all descendants of Romulus. They all have those wolfish qualities of ambition, ruthlessness, and a tender love of family. What now? I'm going to be treated like lesser because I'm a plebeian? I guess I can live with that. I'm not a super rich guy. I don't have a villa on the Palatine. I live in an apartment on the Aventine. But your son, Mr. Patrician, loves my daughter. He thinks she's wonderful, and he's not wrong. But you don't want your son to marry my daughter because she's a plebeian? Really? That I've got a problem with. Here's something else I've got a problem with. We go to court, and I am judged for the same crime differently than you are, Mr. Patrician. I'm a plebeian, you're a patrician. You are given a latitude and the benefit of the doubt in a way that I will never be, because I'm a plebeian. I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with the law changing based on who somebody is. So you know what I'm going to do, along with all the other plebeians? I'm going to leave Rome. We're all going to leave Rome. Our families are going to leave Rome. We're going to go to another hilltop. We're going to start a new town. Plebeian town. You're not welcome. And the plebeians do this. They go on what is called a general strike. The plebeians of Rome, early in their Republican history, get up and leave. And they start the basis of another village nearby on another hilltop. So now you've got leaders without followers, chiefs without Indians. You've got owners of businesses without workers in those businesses. You've got households without servants. It's a problem, a big problem. Now, the patricians try to soldier on as best they can, but it quickly becomes apparent that a city without plebeians is a city that won't survive. So the Senate and people of Rome, the Senate of Rome, sends a delegation to plebeian town and says, okay, you've made your point. What will it take for you to come back? What will it take for you to come back home with us? And the plebeians said a few things. First off, if you as a family don't want your son marrying my daughter, I guess that's not something we can do much about. But I don't want a law against it. I don't want you to be able to appeal to the law over your son's blue blood mixing with the mud blood of my family. No. We're going to clean up the law. We're going to get rid of distinctions between patricians and plebeians in the law. Roman citizens are going to be judged all the same way, as Roman citizens, not as patricians and not as plebeians. The senatorial delegation says, agreed. Second point, as to the law. Many of you guys can read and write. You do that voodoo magic of literacy. We want the laws written out so that everyone can see. We want the laws written out so that nobody is going to be able to snooker us into accepting being treated in a way that we shouldn't be treated. We want the laws to be public. Okay? So the senator's delegation agrees.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what is going to result from this general strike, aside from a revision of Roman law, is called the 12 Tables. On 12 stone tables, the laws of Rome are engraved. Anyone who can read and write can find out what the law is with absolute certainty. And if you can't read and write, there are people called scribes that are sort of like lawyer accountants today. And what these scribes can do with their magic reading power is they can read to you. And if a scribe reads it wrong and lies to you, everyone else who can read will call him on it. So I, as a plebeian now, have reasonable assurance that I am under the same law as Mr. Fancy Pants up the hill, and that I and he are accountable to a law that we both can read and that we both can understand. That's a huge deal. There's still inequality. There's still social stratification. There are still patricians and plebeians. It would be unreasonable to try to get rid of those things, but it's more fair. We're now all being treated by the law as Roman citizens. Equality under the law is a big deal. We've talked about it. So the 12 tables give that. There's something else that the plebeians get out of their general strike. A new political officer to go along with the senators and the consuls. The new political office is called the Tribune of the Plebs, the Tribune of the plebeians. Now, the Tribune is not a full senator. The Tribune cannot propose laws in the Senate or in the Committee of the Centuries, which is the lower house of Roman government. What a Tribune can do is they have two superpowers, like Superman's ability to have X-ray vision or fly, like Batman's special ability of being clever, strong, and wealthy. It shows you that everyday people can still make a difference. Like the Flash's secret ability of wearing red spandex and not looking silly. All of these things are special abilities. The Tribune's special ability, one of two, is the power to veto! Veto! Now, veto in Latin means, many of you remember what Mr. Will, I'm sure he taught you this. Yeah.
I forbid.
I forbid! Veto! Not happening. With a law or with a business interaction on the streets, a tribune is there to look out for the interests of the plebeians and to make sure that things are fair. So, if the patricians and are trying something in the Senate that's not quite kosher or hunky-dory as far as the tribune thinks, the tribune can walk into the Senate and say, I forbid! And that's it. The law is stopped right there. The proposal is stopped right there. He has the power of veto. If there's an argument in the street and the lictors, or the equivalent of police, are settling it and the tribune doesn't think it's fair, I forbid. The tribune can stop anything except a war. The tribune can stop any business dealing or any law on the basis of it's not fair. Tribunes today are, the closest thing that I can think of to them is a union leader. So say you've got a factory, like near where I grew up, a jet factory that produces jet engines, Pratt & Whitney. And at Pratt & Whitney, what they do is they make jet engines for military's jets and civilian jets, jet engines of all kinds. And there's the management that runs the Pratt & Whitney assembly line and makes sure that quality control is there and expedites things to make sure that the production line doesn't stop. But all of the workers are unionized. A good Union worker at Pratt & Whitney can make $40, $50, $60 an hour. It's a lot of money. It's more money than I'll make as a teacher. And they're part of a union. The union has to approve all changes in policy. If the union does not think that something is particularly fair to the workers, they're going to stop it until a deal is reached. Now, this sort of union is very uncommon these days. For the last 50 years, the power of unions has decreased because businesses would simply say, no, we're not going to hire union people anymore. We don't need the hassle. And because jobs are hard to find, they get away with it. Back in the day, people were forced to put up with unions for better or worse. But a union leader is not there to look out for the assembly line. They're not there to look out for the company. They're not there to look out for the customer. They're there to look out for the worker. That's their top priority. I was a member of the teachers union, even though I'm a conservative Republican, when I first became a teacher. In part because most people in my school district in Maine thought you had to be. But I left the union because, in my opinion, the teachers union was so focused on what they thought was good for teachers that they were suggesting things that I thought was bad for kids and bad for schools, and I wouldn't do that. So, for my part, I wasn't happy with the union. I left. But a tribune of the plebs is looking out for the interests of the common person, the plebeians. Union leaders looking out for the workers and their membership. That's their primary job. Now, how does a union leader, or how does a tribune, not union leader, how does a tribune do his job without suffering all the kinds of intimidations and threats that you think a person like that would have to solve? Well, they have a special superpower that's defensive. Their veto is their offensive superpower. They can stop anything in its tracks. The defensive superpower is they are inviolate. They are inviolate. No, I do not mean they are bathed in a purplish light. Not that kind of violet. They are inviolate in that they cannot be violated. Let's say for a moment that Ms. Anderson is a tribune. She may want to see no evil, hear no evil, but you're a tribune. Your job is to go around saying veto to things and insisting that people negotiate if the people are being violated somehow. And I work for a senator, and I'm kind of a thug. And my senator is sick of you whinging and complaining about things. So I decide that the way to handle it is to pound you into jelly with my fists. Now, that stuff can happen in life. But if I were to even put a finger onto a tribune who is acting in the course of their duty and was to say, just wait a second, think about this. That is a death penalty offense for me. If I lay hands on you, if I try to stop you, if I try to physically restrain you, I am violating your inviolateness. And because you are legally inviolate, I am committing a sin against the gods of Rome and a death penalty offense. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not. You go on making your complaints. I'm not going to mess with you at all because I don't want to die the way they're going to kill me for violating your inviolate status. Does that make sense? Miss Tribune? Okay, good. So, we've gone through everything up through the tribune of the plebs. Roman society, like every society, including ours, requires more from the citizen than a slave society does. If you're in Soviet Russia or Communist China, if you're in Maduro's Venezuela or Castro's Cuba, if you're in Hitler's Germany or Stalin's Russia, you have to obey. You have to comply. You have to mouth the loyalties and the oaths. Sieg Heil. Do svidaniya, tovarish. Good evening, comrade. You have to do what you're told. And if you do what you're told in thought, word, and deed, you probably will be left alone. So it's easy, in this sense, to be a slave. You don't have to think. In fact, thinking gets in the way. But a free person, they need to make a contribution. They need to be a supportive society. Not only should they vote wisely, they should behave wisely according to the law. It's not somebody else's law. In a free society, it's my law. It's your law. We owe our society more loyalty because our society is a society that has us be free. Because we are free to think and speak and do according to the dictates of our conscience, we are not a bunch of resentful slaves under the whip. We do not have to shut up and do what we're told. We do not have to accept things that the powerful say we should accept for our own good. No. The price we pay, though, for our freedom is that there are civic duties that we must perform, like obeying the law in thought, word, and deed. Like not just doing the right thing when somebody is around checking up on you, but doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do and you believe in it. The virtues that inspire the good behavior of a Roman citizen are as follows. Auctoritas. Auctoritas is authority. You carry yourself with authority. You carry yourself like a leader. You act like a leader. You speak like a leader. You don't say things unless you can speak with authority. Life ain't fun. It's serious. And as serious business, you should think things through enough to make sure that what you say is said authoritatively. It's what you really believe. And the difference between a leader and an irresponsible follower is an irresponsible follower will do what they want regardless of consequences, counting on somebody else to pull their fat out of the fire. A leader will try to do the right thing because people have entrusted that person with leadership. If the leader makes bad decisions, people who trusted the leader are going to suffer. A good leader doesn't ever want that to happen. So, auctoritas, authority, you carry yourself as a leader, even if you're not. You speak and behave as a leader with more responsibility than somebody who's just following along. The second great civic virtue, dignitas. Dignitas. Dignitas is dignity. Dignity is treating yourself and treating others like you're worth something. Dignitas is not vanity. Dignitas is not stubbornness. I got to win every argument because I'm me. I just got to be me. No, that's not dignity. That's vanity. That's egotism. Dignity is you don't act like a fool, except when you're being jokey with the kids or the dogs or whatever. You don't act like a fool. You carry yourself with a certain degree of seriousness. You carry yourself with a certain degree of dignity, and you treat others the same way. As you expect to be treated if you behave in a dignified fashion, you will treat others with dignity. You won't treat people like scum. You won't treat people like tools. You won't treat people like appendages that you can order around. When you go to a restaurant, you don't treat the waiter or waitress with contempt. You treat them with respect. When you are out in the world and you see somebody doing a job like sweeping the street, before you cross over the area they're just swept, you look at them and you ask, is it okay if I do this, or are you going to do something else right now? Or you just say, excuse me, or sorry to walk on your area. You take the time to treat people well. And you insist on people treating you well, not by being, again, a vain little bully, demanding, but you simply behave in such a way that people will naturally treat you with dignity. Okay? The third, gravitas. Gravitas is gravity. That's seriousness. Gravity or seriousness. If you are a grave person, possessed of gravity or seriousness, you are not frivolous. You don't fritter away your time. You don't waste people's time. You don't waste the opportunities that you are given. Life's serious, and nobody gets out alive. Use the time you have well. Be serious about things. Think about what you're doing and make sure you're doing what you're going to be proud of. That's gravitas, gravity. Finally, pietas. Pietas is piety. Piety is a deep and reverent respect for your fathers and their fathers and your forefathers going back to the beginning. Pietas is piety. It is a deep respect for your fathers and their fathers and their fathers. Seeing yourself as not as a completely liberated, free individual who can do anything they want in life, but seeing yourself rather as an extension of your family. Imagine that your family is the life form and you're an organ in that life form. You're a group of cells in that greater life form. What if Dad's a moron? Well, you respect him as best you can because at least I'm sure in some ways he's got some good things to say. What if Dad's cruel? Well, his cruelty may come from anxiousness because the world's a scary place and he wants to raise tough children. So by being hard on you, maybe he's going to help you be stronger when you're later in life facing adversity. Whereas somebody else might collapse under the weight, under the responsibility, because you learned to deal with your father, who is not always nice, you've learned to deal with life, which is certainly not always nice. Pietas is finding some good in the ancestors that came before you and that made you. Now, if you are a person who carries themselves with authority, if you carry yourself with dignity, if you carry yourself in a serious or grave fashion, and if you are loyal to your family and to what the country stands for, you're going to be a certain kind of person. It's not the kind of person that the Kardashians would party with. It's not the kind of person that the popular culture lionizes. But it is the kind of person that makes the world work. It's the kind of person who's worthy of freedom. I once told you that if you control yourself, people around you won't need to control you. If you control yourself, people around you will not need to reach out and control you. They don't want to. They do it because they have to, because if you're an irresponsible bozo, it could hurt people. You've got to be controlled. And if you can't do it, somebody else will step in. Like in life, if you can't control yourself, the legal system will, and you'll get to experience the wonderful world of prison. Because you can't control yourself. You've got to learn to do that. But if you control yourself, others don't need to control you. A person who has those virtues can be trusted to be free. They're not going to be dangerous. Guns aren't dangerous in my mind. I'm going to make an analogy that might irritate some of you. That's fine. This is on purpose. A gun is as much of a tool as a wrench. I can kill somebody with a wrench if I want to, especially if it's a big old plumbing wrench. A gun is dangerous if you are careless with it, self-indulgent with it, unserious with it. If you're serious, if you're grave, if you carry yourself with dignity and authority, that gun will never be a problem. You have it there just in case there's an emergency. That's the way I try to carry my weapon when I'm off campus. Freedom is like a gun. Politics is deciding where you're going to point the gun and when you're going to pull the trigger. Freedom is as serious as life gets. You make choices that are going to change your life or the lives of others. So, by being worthy of freedom, the Roman citizens of the Republic made it possible for their society to go around without too many laws, because the Roman people would control themselves and not need to be controlled by others. I think what I'll do is I'll leave it there for today. Let's see what time it is. I may have time for one more thing. No, I don't. We're done. There's going to be a quiz on everything we've done so far in Chapter 3. That's on Rome, Wednesday or Thursday. So be ready for that. It'll be part